O God, make speed to save me. O Lord, make haste to help me. I will walk at liberty, for I seek thy command. I will speak of thy testimonies also before kings, and will not be ashamed. And I will delight in thy commandments which I have loved. My hands also will I lift unto thy commandments which I have loved. And I will meditate in thy statutes. Amen. Hello and welcome once again, wherever you may be. I'll leave a link in the show notes for that beautiful piece of music we heard at the beginning. I suppose it is that evocation, and if I ask myself what is England, that is what I hear. Today I have an unusual selection of readings, mainly from the East, one from the Yellow Emperor, another from the Quran, a third from Prabhupada, as well as something from Gurdjieff. Back on the Karnak. My dear and kind grandfather, exclaimed Hussein, be so kind as to explain to me, if only roughly, why they there on that planet take the ephemeral for reality. It was only during later periods that the three-brained beings of the planet Earth began to have this particularity of their psyche. Just that particularity arose in the beings there only because their chief part, which was formed in them, as in all three-brained beings, gradually allowed other parts of their total presence to perceive new impressions without what is called being part of good old duty, but just merely as in general such impressions are perceived by the separate independent localizations existing under the name of being centers, present in the three-brained beings. Or, as I should say in their language, they believe everything anybody says, and only not that which they themselves could cognize with their own sane deliberation. In general, any new understanding in these strange beings becomes crystallized only if you say about somebody or something just what John Smith says, and then only if John Brown says the same. The hearer is now quite persuaded that it is just so, and couldn't possibly be otherwise. Thanks merely to this particularity of their psyche, and to the fact that the said writer was much spoken about in the said manner, most of the beings there at the present time are now persuaded that he is indeed a very great psychologist, and has an incomparable knowledge of the psyche of the beings of this planet. Initially, when I read this book and Gurdjieff's work, I thought it was very funny and I could kind of understand what he means. And now it seems very clear to me that this is exactly how it is, and that people very rarely have a reason that comes from their own confrontation. I see it in many of the people I know who, in my cohort, are over 50, meaning they are 2/3 of the way through their life. And although I love them all dearly, I see that the bravado is starting to wear away, and what is left underneath them? And because I have had a rather unfortunate life, I've been forced, against my will, to study and practice all sorts of ridiculous religions and spiritualities, and I have gained very much, I suppose. The details here, Gurdjieff says that when you don't exert being part of good old duty, the centers respond to perception on their own, as if they weren't connected to a being at all, as if they were just cells in a petri dish, rather than cells that are connected to a soul, who is acting from the center, who is using the centers. A soul who is using the centers through his will, through having actual goal for today. He is receiving information from the environment via his centers in order to achieve his aims. Most modern human beings, it doesn't work like that. The centers are loose, they are untethered to the soul, there is no real will, and there is no even recognition that there is a problem here, since there are so few people left who live in that way. You know, I was reading this morning a lovely young lady, intelligent lady, who posted that if only somebody could make an AI that everybody could trust, because she was tired of being messed around by people's different opinions. You see, that lady no longer has the sense that knowledge comes from her own being confrontation, the confrontation of what she sees, what she perceives with her existing being data that is in her moving center, her mental center, emotional center, and she sort of struggles with each new thing that she sees to integrate it. Does it make sense to me? How does it compare with what I have seen or felt or heard before? She's lost all sense of that. It dawned on me that people don't lose their countries, really. They forget their countries. In other words, they no longer really taste that song that I played at the beginning. They no longer connect to it. It deteriorates. And then something interesting happens. New businesses open up that are charged with helping people become unconscious. The news, for instance, it is an unconsciousness device that these people use to assist them to not remember. I remember this week the time when I was in Kathmandu in Nepal at an Osho center there, Tapovan. And they have a beautiful meditation center, fully glazed on all sides in the middle of the forest, huge dark green trees swaying slowly in the wind outside all the way around. And there were about 30 of us in the room, using one of Osho's techniques, being guided through it, and outside 4 Nepali guys turned up with an angle grinder and started cutting some concrete. Nobody did anything. Nobody in the room I was in, even though we were in complete silence doing this guided meditation, did anything. Then I got up and I went to do something. I went to have a word with those guys and told them to call it off for 45 minutes. That's the way it is all the time. On the streets, in Parliament, at work, nobody does anything. They keep their heads down, they don't want to get involved, they don't want to know, they don't want to try, they want to pretend like it doesn't exist. Apart from a few, and those few are like precious diamonds and they are precious to me. After I had done all those methods that Osho taught, which were very good because they mixed together the East and the West, and very, very courageous, and also the methods coming from the East, especially the Buddhist methods. Finally, I was left alone without any books and without any teachers, and I just had a method and I just had to do it. And I had to make it work. I was grateful then because I had discovered the path. The path involves using methods. Methods are the only thing that counts, because methods make the action. Originally, each religion is a method. It has techniques, and those techniques act upon your psyche, act upon the many eyes, act upon the false self, the real self. They integrate things, they help you die, they help you experience your soul, or the higher soul of the universe, a God. They are methods. But you see how people talk about them these days? They have lost the sense of the method and now talk about what they believe. Prabhupada says, in France, is everybody pleased there? That is your imagination. You see, Vox populi, the people's government. People, generally people, they are fools and rascals. How a government of fools and rascals can improve themselves? It's not possible. They are ignorant, abodha jata. They have no knowledge. The knowledge of eating, sleeping, mating, defending, that is animal knowledge. Everyone knows it. How to eat, nobody requires any education. How to sleep, nobody requires any education. How to have sex life, nobody requires any education. How to defend, nobody requires any education. They are not the subject matters of education. Everybody knows it already. Freud has written a big philosophy on the sex life. Does it require any education? Anyone knows how to use the sex life. Similarly, I am making atom bombs, big skyscraper buildings, thousands of slaughterhouses. Formerly also they were meat eaters, but did they maintain slaughterhouses? No. Alright, I want to eat meat. Just go in the forest, kill one animal, that's all, pick it up. So this is the advancement of civilization. It means the advancement of slaughterhouses, of skyscraper buildings, of the atom bomb, of Freud's philosophy. This is advancement. This is not education. This is simply a waste of time, because you cannot change your destiny. There are agricultural institutes, big colleges, how to improve agriculture. But even crude people are producing food. With all the agriculture, does it mean that there is no person who is needy? There are so many needy people. Starving people are still there. And those who produce, they're producing and throwing it into the sea. This is modern education. Now here in the British Parliament, what is the use of the Parliament? They have lost their empire. What is the use of Parliament? Formerly they had to rule over the whole world. So many representatives. Now they have got, what have they got? But still they go to Parliament. The bodyguard, the king, the queen. It's a show. Without consciousness, this so-called advancement of civilization has no meaning. Well, I am getting slightly bored of the problems of Britain and America, who abandoned tradition and religion a long time ago. Their countries are in massive disarray, but who can talk to them? Gurdjieff says that if a man can make coffee well, then already you can talk to him. But do the British and Americans make coffee well? I'll read a little bit from the Quran, and as they say in Islam, Bismillah ir-Rahman ir-Rahim. I did not create jinn and humans except to worship me. I seek no provision for them, nor do I need them to feed me. This worldly life is no more than play and amusement, but far better is the eternal, home of the hereafter for those mindful of Allah. Will you not then understand? Know that this worldly life is no more than a play, an amusement, a luxury, mutual boasting, and competition in wealth and children. This is like rain that causes plants to grow, to the delight of the planters. But later the plants dry up and you see them wither, then they are reduced to chaff. And in the hereafter there will be either severe punishment or forgiveness and pleasure of Allah, whereas the life of this world is no more than the delusion of enjoyment. This worldly life is no more than play and amusement, but the hereafter is indeed the real life, if only they knew. If we cross-reference the Quran with Gurdjieff's knowledge, the meaning is that we're in a very strange situation on this world. There is an unusual need for certain energies that have given rise to the frothing life that is human life. Richer than we probably deserve, and there are possibilities for huge development to happen so that you are reborn in heaven. That is the meaning here. But due to the tastiness of the material world that we find ourselves in, most people live and die inside of it and are taken down once again. So I'll read a passage from the Yellow Emperor's classic on internal medicine, which is a beautiful text from China. I find very calming because it talks about flowing with the seasons and adhering to the society that is around you, not trying to be too different, but flowing along with those around you, but with a sagacious inner knowledge at the same time. The Yellow Emperor once addressed Tian Shi, the divinely inspired teacher. I have heard that in ancient times the people lived through the years to become over 100 years, and yet they remained active and did not become decrepit in their activities. But nowadays people reach only half of that age and yet become decrepit and failing. Is it because the world changes from generation to generation, or is it that mankind is becoming negligent of the laws of nature? Chi Po answered, in ancient times, those people who understood Tao, the way of self-cultivation, patterned themselves upon the yin and the yang, the two principles in nature, and they lived in harmony with the arts of divination. There was temperance in eating and drinking. Their hours of rising and retiring were regular and not disorderly and wild. By these means the ancients kept their bodies united with their souls, so as to fulfill their allotted span completely, measuring unto 100 years before they passed away. Nowadays people are not like this. They use wine as beverage and they adopt recklessness as the usual behavior. They enter the chamber of love in an intoxicated condition. Their passions exhaust their vital forces, their cravings dissipate their true essence. They do not know how to find contentment within themselves. They are not skilled in the control of their spirits. They devote all their attention to the amusements of their mind, thus cutting themselves off from the joys of long life. Their rising and retiring is without regularity, and for these reasons they reach only 1/2 of the 100 years and then they degenerate. In the most ancient times, the teachings of the sages were followed by those beneath them. They said that weakness and noxious influences and injurious winds should be avoided at specific times. The sages were tranquilly content in nothingness, and the true vital force accompanied them always. Their vital, original spirit was preserved within. Thus, how could illness come to them? They exercised restraint of their wills and reduced their desires. Their hearts were at peace and without any fear. Their bodies toiled and yet did not become weary. Their spirits followed in harmony and obedience. Everything was satisfactory to their wishes, and they could achieve whatever they wished. Any kind of food was beautiful to them, and any kind of clothing was satisfactory. They felt happy under any condition. To them it did not matter whether a man held a high or low position in life. These men can be called pure at heart. No kind of desire can tempt the eyes of those pure people, and their minds cannot be misled by excessiveness and will. In such a society, no matter whether a man is wise or foolish, virtuous or bad, they are without fear of anything. They are in harmony with Tao, the right way. Thus they could live more than 100 years and remain active without becoming decrepit, because their virtue was perfect and never imperiled. It's a beautiful text, and I often feel that as soon as I enter into conflict or drama or negativity, I am imperiled. Then I feel a sense of danger, of vulnerability. It is as if I've left myself. I have not gained more power. I am sort of simulating it with drama. That is not real power. That is just noise. And so it doesn't really mean anything, except that it splits your forces and it opens your heart to vulnerability. The text on the Yellow Emperor is more than 2,000 years old, and I note that in it says, They devote all their attention to the amusement of their minds, thus cutting themselves off from the joy of a long life. The problems that we're dealing with in the so-called modern world are some kind of gap that human beings are stuck at. Problems that have witnessed the ascendancy of different civilizations. And still there are no solutions and no real explanations. Sometimes, as a hobby, I download a dozen or 24 books on witchcraft or the occult or ancient books of any description at all. And I look through them and very quickly I can see that once again, there's nothing there. Something very interesting about those books is occasionally somebody tries to put some diagram of metaphysics up, and it's always symmetrical. Always. There's a square and there's a triangle on the left and there's a triangle on the right. This symmetricality shows how primitive these people are. Even books like the Tao Te Ching and the Yellow Emperor, they provide something very beautiful, of course, but normally what they do is they show this hierarchical ladder. They say, this is how the world should be. The refined at the top, and then the intermediary in the middle, and at the bottom you have the coarse. This is how it should be. We should be pure. There are 7 steps, and on the highest step, everything should be pure. But this is not the real book. That is an ideal model of the final state. The real books are the ones that show you how to get from this place that you are in to that place. They are method books. It's strange to consider that most of humanity isn't really doing anything. They're taking up positions in the energetic structure and they produce some kind of energy with very little input from themselves, more as the energy of a mass. Something else that's come to me this week and that I make use of is Shivananda said that in relation to your sins, you should just forget about them. As you move along the path, just forget about it all. Forget about everybody you have met. Forget about everything that happened. Forget about everything you've seen. Forget about this entire world. Just drop it and don't take it with you. Okay, it's hot out there, so I hope you're enjoying yourself. Do take care. Goodbye.